and help continue growing their business. Most of us are sick and tired of being sick and tired, hearing about the great resignation or the mass migration to working from home. Our SDA 365 recruiting systems features our proprietary recruiting process designed to attract top talent the minute they are in the market for a career change or new opportunity. Our clients will say it far better than we ever can. So please visit sandystarami.com and get started quickly and easily right now. You can also download your free PDF, The 7 Deadly Recruiting Sins You Need to Know Now, as well as the video series of the 7 Deadly Sins. So go to sandystarami.com, hear for yourself why our system pulls the best talent in the market consistently. And today, again, our special guest is the Laurie Halter, CEO of Charisma. She is an awesome human being, first and foremost. She is the host of an awesome podcast called Careering on all major podcast platforms, a bona fide super mom, and our public relations pro for business, bourbon, and cigars, automotive mastermind.
Yeah, baby. Raise the glass.
Let's go.
Man, Ron, you can introduce me anytime. Sweet.
I gotcha. Charisma is a boutique PR agency specializing in the automotive, HR, and hospitality and technology industries. Through her unique work, and relationships with editors in each space, she has scored multiple hits in top publications such as Automotive News, Internet Retailing, Consumer Digest, and the Wall Street Journal. She is PR, and she and her team deliver results. This I know because I know her clients, Sandy knows her clients, and they all say the same thing. She is the PR pro and the best in the business. So thank you again, Laurie, for joining us.
Well, thank you for the kind introduction. Like I said, I'm going to hire Ron to just walk around and introduce me that way.
I love that. I bring the energy for you because you're a ball of energy, and I love that about you.
You know what I got to figure out? I got to figure out how to do all the video edits while it's live, because I was going to drop a queen's crown right on her head.
Yes.
As you were describing this.
You guys get me.
And I was going to get her Supermom cape, the whole deal.
That'd be awesome.
Look, I'm excited to have you on today, Laurie, for a lot of different reasons, not the least of which, to be completely honest with you, is that, I talk about how businesses can grow their business and grow their influence and their market share in a down market. And we're entering in, as we know, to a little bit of economic turmoil right now. And so, I think PR has a strong role to play in that overall mix. And I think a lot of people out there really don't understand what effective PR is and where it fits into the marketing puzzle, if you will. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. The one thing I want to also note is your LinkedIn profile picture is killer. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm going to tell you why, because it's the essence of exactly who you are. There's no false advertising with your LinkedIn profile picture. I have hung with you at Business Bourbon and Cigars, as Ron has, and our buddy SJ 24/7, the man who's going to be late to his own funeral, Scott Joseph. But your picture captures the essence of exactly who you are, and that's how people know you. And I think that's awesome. There's genuine, authentic Laurie Halter.
Thank you so much. And that was definitely by design. I did not want the old boring headshot. Right. It's like let's change this up a little bit. Let's show who we truly are.
Well, like Scott uses his headshot from 24 years ago.
Yes, he does. Actually, by the way, I went and looked the other day and I was like, who is this person?
Yeah, no doubt. He's using the shoe polish in his hair to make sure he covers in all the cool spots. And I love him. I'm giving him a hard time because I love him. One of the most inspiring guys that I've ever come across, or people I've ever come across. But we're not here to talk about SJ. We're here to talk about you. And what I would like to know a little bit is your background. How did you get into the PR world? Where did you start professionally? How did you grow up? What was your education? Give us the backstory on Laurie Halter, Supermom and PR Pro.
Well, I love that. So I've now been in automotive more than 20 years. I've had the agency since 2003. So I've been in automotive since 99. I'm coming up on my 20th year owning Charisma Communications.
Would you start in the sixth grade? You started about sixth grade?
Yes, exactly right. Thank you, Sandy. Your check is in the mail. Yes. But, it was really a situation where I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. And in college, I interned. I was like on the radio station. I was on TV. I was kind of on the fast track. I was working for a news station. They wanted to promote me right after my internship in school into one of the broadcasters.
Mm-hmm.
And on one of my very first internships, I went out one of my very first like air dates after an intern, they sent me out and asked me to ask the people who had survived through an apartment fire, how they were feeling. And I was like, God. No, I'm not going to do that.
That's
and
a hot assignment,
that's the way it works.
That's right? A hot assignment.
Yeah. I just said, I'm not going to do it. If that's the way it works, then I don't want to do this. So I went from quickly learned that broadcast journalism was not my jam. If it meant going to talk to people after tragedy about how they felt.
Sure.
Right. And so the funny thing is too, back then I had a professor who was like, you really should go into PR. And I was like, PR, never. I will never like schlep products for companies that I don't believe in. And I'm still friends with him today. And he's like, I told you that's where you would end up.
Isn't it awesome that somebody recognized that talent and was able to create a path for you? Like so often I hear young people today where they're either confused, they're disillusioned, they don't know how to pick the lane and go for it. And having somebody like that you trust, that has confidence in you and your capabilities, give you that little sliver of light that you can chase.
That's you for me, Sandy. That's you for me, Sandy.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Thank you.
That's just
well, and even along that same theme, so getting into automotive. So I got into Chrome data when I was, I started with Chrome data in 99. And if you guys have been in the industry long enough, Chrome data was like, back when they were actually switching it over, everyone was becoming the .com, right? This was back in the early 2000s when everyone thought they had to add .com to their name. And I was there for 3 years. But speaking of people who lead the way, my boss at the time, Phyllis McKenna, was the VP of marketing. And same with that company. They were really moving me up the ranks. They were going to have me become, funny enough now, product manager, which I'm like, that would have been a disaster. But
I would see you like losing your mind.
I am not detail oriented. But I went to her after 3 years and I said, I really love all the opportunities you've given me, but I just have this entrepreneurial spirit. I just feel like I need to go out on my own. And so Phyllis not only laid me off so I could get severance, but they became my first client for Charisma Communications. And so that talk about another leader and person who, and I still talk to Phyllis today, but she really saw something in me and said, okay, if you want to go do this, like not only am I going to help you get out of your current role, we're going to help support you in your future one.
Wow.
So, and the rest is history. I tried to get out of automotive 2 or 3 times in the early years and wanted to like go into some other industries. And as we all know, once you're in automotive, you never get pulled out of automotive.
Well, it's funny. Every time somebody says that to me, I think of the scene in Godfather 3.
Yeah.
Just
pull me back in.
Yeah, I think Sandy's going to put a horse head in my bed after this interview.
No, definitely not.
There are other things I do, but I don't do the horse head.
You don't do horse heads? Okay, good.
The horse head goes in the bed of your enemies, Laurie, if they disrespect you.
Okay, that's right.
I might have gone to your employer and said, you're either going to release this young lady or it's either going to be your signature or your blood.
There you go. Ooh, right? I like it. Ooh, is this your retention strategy? I like it.
That's it. I love the fact that you were courageous enough to actually go for it, that you recognized that entrepreneurial streak and didn't shrink from that opportunity, that you went for it. And it's always helpful when you've got somebody, with blowing some wind into your sail, if you will.
Yeah.
But you have to have the courage to actually raise it and then go for it. So good for you.
And Laurie,
I feel like so much of that as well is I really couldn't not do it. So I don't know if you both felt this way, but there really wasn't an option. I mean, I appreciate you saying it was brave, but I really was I so needed to be an entrepreneur that I was like slowly dying working for a company.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. God, you described it perfectly. It is that slow death. It's like sometimes you don't even realize it's happening to you. It's just this malaise that comes over you spiritually and emotionally.
Yes.
And you feel as though like every day you're dying that one slow little death every day over and over. Speaking of dying a slow death, it's like hanging out and drinking a bourbon with a guy by the name of Scott Joseph. And man, do I know. We're going to bring him in because he just got here. Now, he's actually about 15 minutes early, which means on our clock, he's 12 minutes late. But I'm bringing him in anyway.
Now there's trouble.
That's 24/7 in the house, baby.
There he is.
How we doing, everybody?
How we doing, Scott?
What's up, buddy?
Doing good. Going good. Good to see you all. Sorry, I'm at home today, and I had to walk somebody around the house for some work that I could not get away.
All good.
It's okay, Scott. We just teased you relentlessly while you were off screen, so it's all good.
Listen, Laurie was.
I'm sweating. It's 90 degrees out. I'm going to the gym after this. I mean,
there you go.
But I have to say, you look very slim. You look good. I know you're gearing up for Business Bourbon and Cigars.
Oh yeah,
in Louisville.
Let's go.
13th, through the 15th. We'll give a little prop here on the screen here, and we're all collaborators on Business Bourbon and Cigars. Number 4. We were just talking about Laurie taking the entrepreneurial leap as a young person and starting her own business, and I said, like, there's no better example of an entrepreneur than both of you. I think that you are two great examples of people that went for it and dealt with all the trials and tribulations. So Laurie, go on and keep talking. Just in terms of getting out of the gate early, what were the biggest challenges you faced for yourself from a business perspective and then a mindset perspective as a young entrepreneur?
I love the mindset perspective too, because I think a lot of people don't really think about that side of it. So I would say for a physical perspective or a day-to-day, just staying in the game long enough, right? I mean, I was lucky enough that at that time, my soon-to-be husband and I, he was working. And so that created that stable base. But it's just sort of, and this goes into the mindset as well, it's getting past the fear of, if you have a down month, saying, oh my gosh, like the world is ending, just knowing that, having that long-term mindset and realizing with optimistic attitude that things will work out, and things generally do work out if you just continue going. So really the key is just not giving up.
And there's no question about it. It's a matter of being able to weather those storms of doubt. Forget about the income piece. It's more like when you don't feel as though the idea or the path that you're taking is being accepted by the market that you're looking to serve. It can really play tricks on your mind, and it becomes really easy to give up. And so kudos to you for not giving up. I know Scott has shared that same entrepreneur's journey as I have, as Ron has in his career as well. And it's everything, being able to just stick with it. And you mentioned playing the long game.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's the one thing, especially if we get hyper focused on sales or marketing. The one thing that I see happen very often is people will abandon a particular strategy way too early, as opposed to tinkering with it and trying to develop some adjustments along the way so that they don't have to completely overhaul everything that they're doing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Total sense. I mean, and like you said, right now, as we're going into a recession, the way I describe it to people is like, think about Warren Buffett. He says the time to go buy and the time to shore up all that stock is during the downturn. And I think it's the same thing with business. Like, I think true leaders and the ones who are brave enough to get out there are the ones that are seeing this as an opportunity instead of something that's scary and as defeating. Yeah.
It's funny. My man, Gene Gurley, was on just before with a quick comment referencing Luca Brasi, because we were talking about The Godfather when you said you couldn't get out of the business. Everybody's tried to get away. We just can't. It's like the Hotel California song, from the Eagles. But Scott, talk a little bit about this. We touched upon it early, and Laurie agrees. And I published an article just today on LinkedIn Live. On LinkedIn.
Great topic. I
on
saw
a newsletter.
that.
Thank you. Yeah, and by the way, that's something you and I have talked about just a ton. We're in the vein of thinking that this is the time when you double down on your marketing, double down on your talent acquisition, where you really aggressively go after those two things to drive long-term success in your business. Talk a little bit about that from your perspective, Scott.
Well, I think, and we're going to talk about this tonight, by the way. I'm going to do a cheap plug for the Clubhouse room at 7.
I will be late
Laurie,
there. So you can.
I know you're going to be late.
Take all the shots at me you possibly can before I get in there. So,
all right, Laurie, are you going to be late for that?
Yes. No, I'll be. Yes, I'll be late for sure.
All right. Everyone's paying me back. So, all right. So, it goes beyond just, I think when people here take the offensive as you're going into a recession or during it, everyone just assumes that means I'm going to spend more money. I'm going to keep promoting beef up the marketing and advertising. That's really not the case. It's you have to do one of the most successful things you can do, and everyone should be doing right now, is cutting cost.
Mm-hmm.
But you really have to know your data, because, and we should be doing this 24/7, regardless of impending recession.
Right.
However, you want to amp up the areas of your marketing that are producing an outstanding return on an investment, and possibly eliminate some of the things that either you can't measure or not producing, and should be done anyways. However, as human beings, we tend to not take action until we feel the absolute need to do it, and recessions tend to do that, right? So that's the first thing. But really, your preparation, and I'm going to talk about this tonight, goes far beyond cutting cost and all that. What have you been doing along the way? So I just said I was late on here because I had to walk somebody around the house. The reason I had to prioritize that is because I need a stonemason. I'm going to give an example here. I need a stonemason to help, address some issues around the house. And Sandy, you've been to my house. There's a lot of stonework everywhere. So It's like, this is not a minor thing. So over the last 12 months, we have called no less than 6 stonemasons. Do you know how many times we've been called back?
Once, and it's the guy that's there today. Yeah, zero.
Goose egg.
Zero. The guy that literally I talked to today showed up at my house yesterday. I happened to be sitting in a chair right by the front door, and walks up with a flyer, just moved up from Nashville, is a stonemason's been doing it his whole life. Nice guy. And I said, buddy, you have no idea the timing. And so,
high noon, baby.
I'm walking him through and everywhere. But where I'm going at with this is this. Your preparation, I don't care how busy you are. The number one industry that gets impacted usually the most in recessions is home services. And the reason for that is people tend to push certain things on the back burner during a recession, things that can be done later. By the way, new car purchases or a new car for the sake of getting a new car are one of those things. I know there's a heavy automotive audience to this show. Sure. However, transportation is considered a need. So if someone obviously has a wreck, or there's a lifestyle change that requires a different vehicle, and or the service work that they get, they will prioritize those things because we have to have good transportation. Home services it's one of the things that suffers the most. All these companies, these stonemasons that are relying on all this new big projects of new construction and this and that as their bread and butter, like they've done for the last 5 to 10 years. They're in for a rude awakening.
Yep.
Because they have not prepared on how to avoid a recession. One of the easiest things you can do to avoid a recession is to have good, solid business practices, when you're not in one. If I'm a stonemason, all right, and listen, my companies are not immune to making mistakes. So this is not about that, but it's your everyday norm. It's your core values. And if I'm a stonemason or something like that, if I am booked out, painters, you can say the same thing with painters, right? If I am booked out, the one thing I'm doing to avoid a recession is every single lead, every single person, I am definitely going to bid on jobs. I am definitely returning phone calls immediately if I can't pick it up right away. And then I am very upfront and honest. Listen, we're booked out until here. I can get you on that's all I ask for. That's all I want. I just want to know I'm on the damn schedule.
Right.
Yep.
All right. Then what they should be doing is setting up a process and daily reminders in their CRM and or calendar system that gives me status updates, because we all know how construction never goes on time. So, how about, hey, we're running a week late. We had you on the schedule this. I'm just letting you know up front, even if it's months in advance, we're going to have to move you to here, and just let me know where I stand so I'm not out in just limbo and la la. And a lot of these times they put you on the schedule, you never hear from them again, and they just no-show you. That's happened before as well. To me, the construction industry, one of the reasons you guys get hit the hardest during a recession isn't because people don't want to buy. It's because people don't want to buy from you.
Yeah.
All right?
Right.
I don't participate in recessions.
Yep.
That's the topic. I don't. My businesses, I refuse.
You say that to me all the time. We've talked about this ad nauseum, and you talk about the importance of, even potentially doubling down on marketing efforts, maybe reallocating where the marketing goes, but doubling down on marketing and PR too. Like we talk for what Laurie's firm does and what her agency is set up to do for clients. Talk a little bit about, Laurie, from a marketing and PR / perspective. Where does PR fit into that equation when we're dealing with an impending recession?
And Sandy, just to piggyback that real quick, also just a way of being proactive.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. So
Instead
I
of
was
reactive.
that's perfect, because I was just going to say, I love what Scott said about I do not participate in a recession. And before we came on for the interview, I was telling Sandy, we currently have a waiting list of clients. And Scott, it's exactly to your point. I don't want to give up that business. I definitely want to be working with anyone who's reaching out to work with us. So instead of giving up that business, I just say exactly like you're saying, just be transparent and say, look, we're dealing with a backlog of clients, but we definitely want to work with you. Let's get you on the list. So that's one way to be proactive. But from a very PR specific standpoint, PR, the part of relations, and we've all four talked about this, relationships for me are key. And so I think for companies, when they're looking at PR, it's like, how do you keep those relations going with editors to keep the news moving forward, right? And to keep having them call you. Because part of PR is getting these companies through press releases, interviews, podcast interviews like this, keeping them in the public eye. Part of that is, how do you keep your social media game on point? Because what you don't want to do right now is go off of LinkedIn or Facebook or those. That is key. You need to be front of mind for these folks when they're thinking of reaching out, just like the stonemason walking up. I mean, the key is you want to be front of mind. And then the third, and this is a really huge opportunity, public relation creates what we like to call thought leadership. And those are folks that say, I want to go out and I want to be the key source about this individual thing. So Sandy, let's say for you, you want to be the key source on retention, right? And why you keep your employees during this time and why it's important to train and bring on the rock star employees during this time. This is not the time to pull back with those messages. Most of your competitors are going to be pulling back. So the key right now is, how do you get your message out first and most and across all of the channels to where anywhere anyone looks, they're seeing you. They're seeing Sandy Cerami as the retention and hiring guru. And so I think from a PR standpoint, it's unlike marketing in that marketing is going out and getting leads and doing activities to bring them in. PR is really pushing your brand, your company, and your name for thought leadership and it works well during recessions, because a lot of folks are pulling back during this time.
Thank you.
They're freaking out and saying, let's, like Scott was saying, like, what can we cut? Let's cut everything. And what happens is, what gets cut a lot of times is the content generation, the social media generation. And that's actually what you should be going further with right now. And so the joke, like I said, Sandy, is I'm not trying to promote my own company because we have a waiting list. We have more than we can deal with. But I think it speaks to the fact that smart companies right now are understanding that there's an opportunity in the marketplace to push their company, their thoughts, and themselves as experts in the field. And the time is now to be doing that, to prepare for the next 1 to 2 years when things come back again.
I think it's a brilliant point, Laurie. And I would say this, you bifurcated. Scott, you want to look that up real quickly while I get to my point?
I'm not even good. I don't know how to spell it. I can't look it up.
You bifurcate the real role that PR serves. You said it's really about getting your brand, your marketing, and your thought leadership in front of prospective clients or your prospective market, which I think is critical. And I love that, because it's something I believe wholeheartedly in. The other piece is, though, you talk about the distribution of said thought leadership.
Yes.
Whether it's on LinkedIn or any of the social media platforms. But what other platforms or channels should businesses be focused on, and how do you leverage those at Charisma to make sure your clients get the most bang for their buck?
Yeah, no, I love that question. And, it's funny, when we're working with a new client, I can always tell when they don't understand the difference between marketing and PR, because they'll say, well, we're not getting any leads. And when are we sending out the next email?
Right.
No, there's it's none of that. I mean, it does certainly bring in leads, but the key is, like I said, just continuing putting your name, your brand, your company, and your thought leadership pieces out there. So we do it with a number of different ways for our clients. We send out, press releases. We write and send those out, and that goes to all of the publications and generally gets picked up on websites, across social media, in the newsletters from a lot of the publications. We pitch them for podcasts like this as guests or interviewed by Automotive News. Like just the other day, I know I always talk about John Traver. I always give Traver a shout out.
My man.
For him.
JT.
He was in a great example is he was in Automotive News the other day, the Fixed Ops Journal. And it was so fun. It wasn't even about his company. It was Dan Shine did a great piece on what his interests are. And we found out that he tasseled corn. His first job was like detasseling corn for $2 an hour. So it's keeping yourselves out there for things like that. And then we help with speaker applications and speaker submissions for all of the shows. So keeping them relevant at the shows and furthering that thought leadership. And then, social media, like we talked about. So looking at all the different channels and ways that they can present their information. And then the final is writing the articles that either go on LinkedIn or go in the publications. So the key, and I tell my clients when they're starting with us, I said, here's what I want. Here's what we're going for. We want someone to see you on LinkedIn, let's say a LinkedIn Live, and then open a publication and see an article from you. And then get a newsletter in their inbox from Automotive News that has a tidbit about your company. And then see that you're the next speaker at the next Digital Dealer Conference. The key is to make it feel this continuous drumbeat, to make it look like they're saying, you guys are absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's the goal of PR.
And technically, I mean, you'll never have a lead attributed to you, but what your work should do is improve whatever marketing you've got and should across the board increase leads, because you're helping people establish their authority, their credibility, and their expertise, right?
Yes,
and so, and like you said, they're everywhere. So, when I see something, let's say if J&L Marketing was a client of yours, if someone sees one of our ads or some of our content, they want to reach out because we've become more trusted. We've become viewed more as an expert, whatever it might be. Yeah. And that's where you help. And so, but you're 100% right. In recessions, it's a huge opportunity because as people pull back, your dollar goes further.
Yeah. Yes.
And so to me, I think it's, you can go to any study you want, and they will all say the people that take the offensive, the people that intelligently market, put more money where it's working, eliminate what's not, the people that stay aggressive with their marketing and advertising, their PR, always pick up market share. And that is so hard to do in normal times. And by the way, when you lose market share, it's very difficult when the recession is over to rebound and get it back.
Yes, correct.
In fact, the companies who stay offensive always experience much higher growth when the rebound happens versus the companies that pulled back universally. So to me, avoiding a recession, when I say that half joking, I just try to get a laugh out of people. I don't participate in a recession, right? But it's a half joke. So
I love it. I think it's true.
Me,
yeah, I think it's absolutely true.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset.
It is, Scott. And when you say it, I know you're half joking, but the point is that I don't look at a recession the same way that other business owners tend to, which is as a negative. I want to find the opportunity. We talked about this in the article we published this morning on LinkedIn, which was that winners tend to be contrarians. Winners tend to be somebody that goes against what the masses are doing. There's an old gambling adage, and it says the masses are asses. Okay. And so if all the money's going in one direction, then you really want to kind of look at and flow in the other direction. That's how the books make money in Vegas. They go against what public sentiment really is. And so, Laurie, you describe it almost as a vanguard for your marketing. It's you are really the tip of the spear when it comes to marketing. And while we're not sitting there calculating what the lead statistics are or deals closed as a result of, I would argue that without that great PR, that thought leadership, the ability to distribute that content across an omni-channel platform at very low cost, by the way, right? I mean, we're not talking about huge marketing dollars being invested there. We're just talking about providing quality content, having the conviction of your message, the courage to put it out there, and the faith to be consistent in doing it, even when everybody else is going the other way, I think is what drives the success. Where do you see most of the CEOs focus messaging during times of recession, the ones that succeed at capturing some additional market share and really driving their business in down economic times?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let me start it with where I see most people fail. Okay. What we should not be doing right now is self-promotion in terms of like us all saying, and you're seeing this from Scott, he's not saying now is the time to advertise and go hard after the advertising. I mean, we are saying like continue that position, continue that momentum. But the message you should not be putting out right now is why people need your product, because that just rings untruthful and inauthentic. So I think what I tell my clients to do is continue your thought leadership, continue writing the articles, continue acting as an educational resource for these, and a true educational resource. Like nothing makes me more irritated when I read an article and it's obviously just like a complete standard promotion for the product the person's selling. Like, let's be a true advocate for dealerships right now and people in the automotive space and tell them what they should be doing. And I think just continuing with their message, continuing with their thought leadership. Like, for instance, one of my clients is Dealer Alchemist. They are looking at ways that they can like go down the hole and they can get to straight VDP views. And so it's, talk about that. Let's discuss that in some of the articles. What are some true ways that we can help these dealerships really hone in on spending their money effectively? Just like Scott said, I mean, it's how do they best spend their money right now from a marketing perspective to get the best result?
I'll give you another thing you have to do to counter, to not participate in a recession is you got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to recognize, potential new revenue streams, new opportunities, because what happens is, and that goes back to paying attention to data and the insights that you get from that, right? What people buy, their buying patterns are going to shift a little bit. If I'm a dealer, I might start noticing more people servicing their vehicles compared to buying. Maybe my sales take right now, inventory offsets that. We still have more demand than supply, but we don't know what a recession does with that, right? But you got to pay attention.
We're going to find out, buddy.
I mean, I can give you a personal experience. In 2008, when the recession hit, two things happened for J&L marketing. Dealers were spending less promoting themselves in terms of direct mail sale events, right? We were fortunate because we had good relationships with OEMs where the OEMs were throwing money at making sure the dealers were promoting themselves, which kept us steady there, right? But what we did do is that's when we made our pivot to digital. All right. And at, in 2008, we had to learn that. So that wasn't something that we could just bounce right into. But so we asked ourselves better questions, right? And the question is, how can we achieve this goal of going full digital and do it quick? All right. Quicker than, say, the normal 2 to 3 year plan. And so we came up with solutions that answered that question, and we went on our way. But dealers, any business vertical, you have to look, not things that are far from your core.
Right.
I'm not suggesting to pivot away from your core as much as it is, at J&L, right? Our core is, if a dealer doesn't need more traffic, whether it's in the front end or the back end of the store, then J&L marketing can't help them.
Yeah.
All right. That's if in the end, I can't agree with a dealer that, listen, more traffic or higher quality traffic would help solve whatever issue they might have, then I have no product for them. I have no service for them. I don't want to, there's no time. There's no sense in wasting everyone's time on that. So, but if I can pivot to something that helps them, right, increase the quality of traffic like digital was. It was a completely different product for us, but it still addressed the one thing that J&L stood for. Then you have to look for those opportunities. And if you don't do it, you're going to really struggle, because not only is it about being aggressive or staying offensive on the marketing and advertising, but I want you to think about this. In every recession, new niches, or like Sandy likes to say, new niches, all right, like to
You've never even read him. Let's be honest.
All right. New niches come in, new businesses form through opportunities in recession. And so if you're not pivoting, you potentially allow a whole new slew of competitors to come in and steal business from you.
Totally.
So you really got to pay attention to buying habits and what your clients are doing.
Yeah, the clearest example I can think of that, and this is very recent, is just think about during the pandemic, guys, the amount of people that started doing a concierge service for service. They've never done that before.
Absolutely.
And now a lot of the dealerships have actually kept that on as like a new service for customers. And so I think you're exactly right, Scott. Like, do something that's complementary. Don't go way out of, base. No. But the ones who are winning, think of new ways to serve their client in whatever situation we find ourselves in, which as of right now is a recession looming.
There's only one exception. There's one exception. During COVID, we had this huge print facility and that warehouse and all that type of stuff. Now where we could have gone is I could have just brought in all the machines to make masks and all the other stuff. Yeah, we could have done something like that. I guess that would have been outside our core, but I didn't know anything about it, and it was just easier to do what we did. So
then you have millions of masks left, and what are you going to do?
That's add that to the list of things you know nothing about, Scott.
Exactly.
Now, I want to pivot back to PR for just a second, Laurie, because the thing that I'm picking up here is that when we talk about how executives and companies can use PR effectively in conjunction with their marketing strategy. Give us a couple of ideas in terms of how you help clients create content. How do you pull from a client effective content that the market has an appetite for, and have them gain the confidence that what they have to say or their perspective on a given topic is something worth sharing?
Okay, so I'll give you an actual example of one of our clients, if that works best.
Sure.
So again, picking on John Traver again, because he's one of my favorites.
We have the John Traver fan club around the screen here.
Yes, John is going to be like, all right, enough about bringing me up during interviews. But
he's going to be upset that we're talking about him so much.
But they're a really clear example of, they're the leaders in BDC. I don't know if many people know John Traver actually coined BDC, and there's a little bit of debate about that, but and he sold
not here
company. But he really coined BDC. He's really the grandfather of the entire idea and business aspect. But a lot of people didn't know that. And John himself has been so careful. He hasn't actually wanted to put himself out there in that way.
I know that.
So we came on and I said, John, you've got such a great personality. You started the BDC. You are, talk about a thought leader. You are the thought leader of BDC. So Correct. What we did with them is, we do all of their LinkedIn posts, and we started doing things like, let's take people through the history of the BDC. Let's take people through the evolution of the BDC.
Smart.
Let's talk about where it came from, and now we've gotten into, for this next month, a lot of the posts will be like BDC best practices, BDC tips, because this is what they're seeing. This is how, that's what they do. We just put an article together for Auto Success that'll be coming out for these guys that talks about lessons John has learned from like Bezos and, Buffett and from other industry titans that will
that's
come
such
into
a brilliant,
and
that how brilliant that is. You're being very humble right now. That is such a brilliant thread to tie into a
right
strategy.
now, right? Yeah.
Sandy, one of the things I'm going to do when we get off of here is I'm going to contact Laurie and I'm going to barter free services from her. All right.
There's
And
no
I'm going to
free, my
show,
friend.
I'm going to give her back how to scale her business up so she doesn't have to have a wait list and can take on
There you
more
go.
clients.
See, this is,
There you
yes,
go.
okay. Sounds good, Scott. Let's do it. Let's figure that out.
But hey,
Lori, what you did, Lori, is you took history and you took somebody that is really a definitive driver of the entire BDC concept.
Yes.
And you created currency as a result of it.
Well,
Love
and
it.
just thought leadership again. Like, why has John not, up until then, why has John not been the leading voice on BDC? You're talking about the person who created the department.
Because
You know that
John is such a humble, he's such a humble leader.
he is.
And
Yes.
you were the perfect personality and influence on him to get him out of his own way. Because Ron and I and Scott, we've talked about John ad nauseum. Ron and I visited him, literally just like invited ourselves to go into his BDC operations center in Dallas. We were blown away. He couldn't have been more accommodating. It was in the height of COVID, by the way, because Ron and I were hopping on planes and licking public handrails with nary a fear. But we went out to dinner with John. John, let me tell you what John is. John is not only is he a humble leader, he's a generous, caring, compassionate, empathetic person who will take the time if you ask for it and you are deserving.
Sincerity.
For hours. We spent like 4.5 hours at dinner with John, unsolicited. He was kind enough to do it. So I love the fact that you pulled him out of his own way.
Yeah, I mean, and that happens a lot. You'll find with a lot of leaders that have, actually, usually with the leaders that have the most important things to say, you will find those guys are the most humble of anyone. And they're the ones who we actually should be listening to, right? Those are the leaders we want to learn from. And so a lot of it with us is just me convincing the leadership team that they have something worthy to say and to put out there. And then we help them find the ways to do that.
Hey, Laurie, go ahead, Stephanie. Oh, I was going to say.
Go ahead.
We can all go at the same time.
Go ahead.
We're fighting over your attention, Laurie, for God's sake.
We don't want no info from you, Laurie. But all I was going to say was it's so funny because you have two ends of the spectrum when it comes to content creation, content strategy, where you have, people like John Traver with the humility where he wouldn't want to come out and say, I'm the BDC grandfather or anything like that, right? But is there a sweet spot of content, right? Because we do see some people that are oversaturating. Some people would argue that that's not even possible. Like the Grant Cardones out there would say, you can't oversaturate. Be in front of people 24/7, 365, right? Is there a sweet spot of not enough or too much? What's in between it?
No, I definitely think there is a sweet spot. I don't agree with the just be in everybody's face all the time. And that's no. I would say we do like LinkedIn 3 posts a week for these clients. I recommend 1 to 2 articles a month being in, at least 1 press release coming out monthly. So the key is we want them to see us. We want them to see these leaders, but we don't want to be so in their face that they're put off, because that definitely can happen. People can definitely say, I've seen it. It happens to me, especially like influencers on LinkedIn, so-called influencers on like LinkedIn and stuff. I'm like, God, I can't see one more post from this person. So it is that kind of delicate balance of let's be everywhere that they're looking, but not so in their face that they're now turned off to our message.
Yeah, it's a great question and a great answer. There is a balance. I think it differs, from personality to personality, I would assume. I mean, some people have a longer shelf life. Some people have an ability to carry the moment a little bit more effectively than others. But is that part of your plan, if you will, your strategy to try and figure out, like, because you got to fine tune it to each one of your clients, I would think, to some degree, with some specificity, right?
Oh yeah, and there's some folks that shall not be named that we've worked with over the years that are really difficult in interviews because they're rambling or it takes them forever to get to their pointer. And so a big piece of what we do.
Scott, you're out.
I'm a rambler.
Scott pointing at himself. He's going, that's.
Lord, you just keep serving them up, and I will keep knocking them over the fence with the baseball.
When you really find that out, and I'll say I do this too, you really find it out when you do the podcast or the LinkedIn Lives, and you're like, whoa, I've interrupted that person 15 times now. Right. I did not let them speak. When I started doing my podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to just take a breath and relax and let the person answer the question.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's the
You know
hardest
what
thing to do.
You know what I've noticed on when I do the interviews is I'm much better as an interviewer when I'm interviewing someone from an industry or a topic that I'm not as familiar with.
Sure.
So when I get straight into the automotive, when I interview people that are right out of the automotive, whether it's a dealer or, a vendor or somebody that's serving the auto industry, I tend to interrupt them more just because I have more knowledge of not than them, but more knowledge of that topic than I would for another guest. And I have to consciously remind myself. It's so funny you bring that up because that happens a lot. By the way, am I the only one that is thinking right now, Sandy Cerami's signature has never looked better? Am I the only
right?
one?
Like, it's in a great spot, Scott.
I might have to create a T-shirt with my signature over your face.
SJ's just missing a cigar in the background of that shot.
That's right.
We'll get to
Business
that.
Bourbon and Cigars is a great example. So I've had a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, you, Sandy, and Scott are all over the place. And it's like, guess what, guys? That's called PR, right?
Yeah,
it's like when they start seeing these promotions for Business Bourbon and Cigars and they start saying us, and we're having so much fun on the interviews like this one. I had you guys on the Careering podcast. We went on Scott's podcast. We're now on your LinkedIn Live. But that is, in a way, the event coming up is the truest example of PR in action.
I love this whole chemistry we've got going here. I love it. You bring up Business Bourbon and Cigars. This is the energy that tends to be there. And we've got a lot of new dealer members coming in on this session. And so I love living. Sandy, it's like when we went to the Derby. I like living through the eyes of
Absolutely.
New people into the room. Laurie, I gravitated to you right at the welcome reception. I saw you just had so much energy and excitement that you were bringing, and I thought, perfect.
That's very sweet. Yes, I won the Hermit Crab race, and it had quite a bit of white wine by that point.
That is
so
correct.
The energy may have been higher than normal, but yes, I was very excited about the Hermit Crab race.
I wonder what it was influenced by. The cocktail reception, maybe.
It had nothing to do with she always brings up the hermit crabs. It had nothing to do with the hermit crabs.
No, I've never been more excited in my life for my little hermit to slowly crawl his way to the finish line.
Isn't that the ultimate oxymoron though? We're like watching them crawl like in slow motion.
Oh yeah,
all across the finish line. We're all screaming like it's
the video
Derby.
is hilarious. Like
Right.
We could not be more excited. And this hermit crab's going like as slowly as possible.
It's like watching Scott trying to figure out the meaning of a word. He's just like
Only after you said it, Sandy.
Hey, Laurie,
half
let
the
me ask
times-
you one more PR related question because it's something that's been on my mind. It's one of the questions I wanted to ask, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Business Bourbon and Cigars because it's coming up. It's right around the corner.
Yep.
But do you have a specific process that you take clients through to help pull from them the content and the thought leadership that they represent?
question.
Is there something that you do each and every time that is rote for you?
Yeah, so monthly we go through, what our content channels will be and what content we want on there. But also one of the things we do that I think is very helpful is a lot of times folks don't think they have something to contribute when there actually is quite a bit. They just don't, they're so close to it that they don't see it.
Yep.
So we tend to do, obviously monthly phone calls and reporting and all of that. But then a bigger piece is I'll get on calls with them and say, okay, just go, ramble. Tell me about, the BBC, or tell me about training. Tell me about digital marketing. And we'll let them just go and record it. And then usually from that, we can do tons of social posts. We can write an article based on that as thought leadership. We can use that as the next press release. So really, it's just a matter of showing, I think, some of these industry professionals that, yes, they actually do have quite a bit of knowledge. And they don't usually know how to get that onto the page or how to create a strategy around that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But if we just let them go and do their thing and talk about something they're passionate and interested in, there's generally plenty for the month to pull from that. So we really help just in terms of what is it? What is your authentic voice? What is your authentic thing that you're having to say? And what is it that you can contribute that would be, again, like I said, not promotional, something that you can contribute that would be helpful for the industry as a whole.
I love the technique behind what you're saying here because a lot of times folks that have not been in front of the camera or put themselves out in front of their businesses, and Scott's a perfect example of this, going back about 4 or 5 years ago, where he really didn't want to get in front of the company. He wanted the company to be the focus.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're not understanding that they've got this treasure trove of content sitting right there. But what you do is you take the pressure off of them having to be the performer and just ask smart, relevant questions that get to the heart of exactly who they are, what they do, why they do it, how they think it should be done best. And I think it's a really smart way to go about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the other thing that we're finding, and it's really great with LinkedIn and all these new social media channels, a lot of people are so afraid to put themselves out there, but people really respond to authenticity. So even if you don't feel like you're ready, Kaylee Filio, Parts Girl, is like a great example of this. She's from Parts Edge. I met her about a year ago. She wasn't on LinkedIn at all. And she called me for advice. I said, just put yourself out there, put your ideas out there, put your face out there. She is now like being interviewed all the time by Automotive News. She's got this huge following. And what people are responding to, you don't have to be an expert or a professional or look and feel your best on these shows. You just have to be yourself. And people really,
Correct.
really respond to that. If it's authentic, has to be real.
Well,
Absolutely.
Sandy has to change it up a little bit, but
we're going to work with Sandy after the show. I mean, he has some work.
I don't know that there's enough time left in the world.
we all, as a PR pro, Laurie, you're not going to I can tell you right now, after working with him, you will not advise him to be authentic.
I'll be advising him to not be authentic, right? Like let's cut down the authenticity a little bit.
Right. Yeah, let's dial it back, right? The enthusiasm, if you will.
Maybe let's not say that.
But I think you raise a great point. A lot of times it's hard for people to relax. And you said it before when you were talking about when you first started hosting your podcast. The hardest thing is to relax because you're so worried about what the audience may think or what they may say. Those are really constrictive and restrictive mindsets. What we really have to do is just throw caution to the wind and just say, I've got something that I want to share. And if they love it, great. If they don't, great. And keep on going.
100%.
They're not going to love everything, right?
Out there.
Yeah, they're not going to love everything. They're going to find the parts of your content offering that they enjoy the most. That's what they'll gravitate towards. And sometimes it'll be different for some than it is for others. But the key is to have the courage of your conviction and the consistent effort put forth so that it's out in the marketplace and people can get a chance to really cut through all the BS that's out there in the market and find messaging and content and intel that they need and they crave. They want it.
Oh, I'll never forget the first time I had a hater on one of my posts, and I could not be more excited because I was like, I made it! Yes, I've got people hating my posts.
It's like your Navin R. Johnson moment.
If you put yourself out there, you will absolutely get some negative feedback. You absolutely will. But I think the key is if you believe in your message and it's resonating with the majority of people because you're being your authentic self, then just ignore all those fools.
Let me guess. The hate came from someone that has not achieved your level of success and or someone you probably weren't going to sell to anyways.
Truthfully, I don't even know who they were because I just delete the message and ignore them. Like it does not matter to me.
People that achieve high levels of success rarely get on there and hate on others.
Yeah. Agree. Nope. They're too busy succeeding, right? They're too busy to be like worried about putting hate.
Laurie, let me ask you, how much of what you do is helping clients work through some of that challenge?
Well, you know what? Honestly, not as much as you would think, because I truly just keep going back to just be yourself. As long as you're authentically who you are. We'll do some media training, and like we definitely on the social media side, if they start getting, like currently one of my clients has a troll and he's all over all their stuff, and so we'll say like, here's how you should respond, or you know what, just delete that. But generally, I don't do as much as people would think because I like people coming out of the gate and being themselves. And I don't really like messing with that formula. Like I really, really encourage people to be their authentic selves.
What I'm thinking is are there times where they do see a troll or a hater and you have to kind of walk them through, like, let's keep going. Don't stop.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, most of them, generally they want to like fight right back and start doing like fight fire with fire. It's like, oh, no. That's like actually the worst thing you can do. Don't give them the time and the energy. It's not worth it. So I would say the biggest thing is they immediately have this kind of gut reaction just start standing up for themselves and their company. And it's like, this has nothing to do with you or your company. This has everything to do with this person who has too much time on their hands.
I think of like Bruce Lee, you have to think of yourself as water. You'll pass right through the screen or the barbed wire that's trying to hold you back, and you keep on going. You got to be fluid. You got to be moving forward, not getting hung up on the barbed wire that is a hater or a troll, So.
And we've all been through it. We've all four been through it. I mean, we all have forgotten.
Scott, probably more.
I get nothing but love. I get nothing but love.
Except Scott. Everyone loves Scott. So, I mean, what can I say?
I'm so glad you brought up John. First off, he started his company same year I did, 91. And he was on the podcast. And that came up, and we were both shocked. We had never met. And so to your point about him, and the reason I bring that up is because he's never done the PR. He never really, when you talk, it's easy for him to be authentic, or I should say he should definitely be authentic, because to talk to him, you immediately gravitate and like him.
Yes.
And his knowledge is through the roof. And so I am seeing their company stuff everywhere now. And I love what you're doing for him. But one of the reasons John will succeed, will achieve and grow market share during a recession is his biggest strength is his questions. He's such a smart business person.
Yes.
Smart questions lead to effective thinking.
Absolutely.
Effective thinking leads to intelligent actions, which then leads to tangible results. He asks great, and it all starts with the questions, thinking smarter. And he's just one of those people. And
I think to your point as well, he's just a good individual, right? So people are very drawn to him because they're really drawn to just John, like above and beyond the company. He's just such a good, solid person that you want to spend time with him and be around him.
Laurie, you're absolutely right. I had such a great conversation with him down in Bonita Springs at Business Bourbon and Cigars #3. And he actually told me the reason why he and Scott had not ever met up until that point is because he had spent decades avoiding Scott and could no longer do so when he extended the invite for the podcast. So,
you had to convince him to Business Bourbon and Cigars because Scott was there. You're like, it's going to be okay. It's all going to be okay.
Oh, my God. This is like batting practice, Scott. I'm sorry.
I'll just give it up to you.
Everyone's right over the plate and at about 75 miles an hour. All I have to do is turn on them.
Exactly.
Pretty simple. Anyhow, so Laurie, let's round it out. Can you leave the audience with maybe one nugget or one lesson that you have learned in your career as a PR expert and professional that you think everybody can benefit from?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and unfortunately, I've already kind of said this, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself.
That's all right. It's worth saying again.
I think it's just being yourself, not being afraid to put yourself out there, because I think the people who have actually not been afraid and put themselves out there, either with or without our help, they are the ones you're seeing right now. And getting back to kind of the recession and keeping yourself top of mind, those are the folks you're seeing right now, are the ones that were willing to put themselves out there, their whole selves out there, and had felt they had something to say, and they're saying it. Yep. And so I really think the biggest thing I would say for anyone looking into PR with our firm, with another firm, or in-house, is just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And certainly as we move into a recession, now is the time, if you haven't started yet, it's a great opportunity to do so, because you're going to see a lot of folks pull back. And the winners are going to be the ones that continue and be consistent with that message throughout the recession. And then they'll be much better set up to take on the business when it comes back.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Guys, you have any other last questions, Laurie?
No, thank you, Laurie. That was everything. Sandy, you covered a lot. Scott, always phenomenal advice and add-ons. So,
Ron's like the only one who's nice to Scott in this group.
I love Scott, man. I got nothing bad to say about Scott, man. He said nothing but help.
I won't come on Sandy's shows anymore unless Ron's there.
Okay, there you go.
I'm like a little bit maybe of the buffer, like even in like the squares here, like I'm like right between you guys, so it's like I could buffer it a little bit.
Yeah, you're the middle ground for sure.
I enjoy it.
We got to show Scott a little love. We'll give Scott a little love, okay, for sure. I'll put my face behind the autograph, but I'll tell you, we are now literally home stretch for Business Bourbon and Cigars. number
yeah.
4, SJ. So, SJ, why don't you take a moment to talk a little bit about what we've got to look forward to? Laurie will be there,
Yes.
which is awesome. Ron will be there. Obviously, the two of us will be there. We've got a great lineup of not only sponsor partners, but some new dealer members joining the community as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, our workbook and our mastermind sessions are going to be much, if it's possible to get more focused. We think we have a process to improve that even more. So when we talk about, acquiring more used vehicles, client retention, making sure our techs are more proficient when it comes to customer pay, when it comes to recruiting, hiring, and retaining top talent, change management, discussing what type of skill sets are going to be, what skill sets are obsolete now versus which ones are going to be needed in the future. We're going to really be dialed in. But then the fun, we've got Churchill Downs is coming in during the welcome reception. I've not participated in this before, so I have no idea what it's like, but they say it's a great time. But I think we're going to be doing some gambling during the welcome reception, similar to the horses run a little faster than the hermit crabs. So we'll see if the changes the vibe.
We'll see if it's as exciting.
We will be serving white wine during the welcome reception. So it's going to be good that, Laurie will bring the same type of attitude and enthusiasm. So I know the next day, Sandy, we're going to Churchill Downs.
Yep.
They do an incredible video on the Kentucky Derby, and we're going to tour that facility. That's one of the things. And of course, we always have buses that shuffle us to and from, and the buses are always stocked. And then we come back to the Louisville Thoroughbred Society. Sandy, you're a member of that, and
yes,
we'll do our dinner there, our rare bourbon tasting. We've got some great bourbons picked out. These are bourbons that you will find very difficult to find in any of your liquor stores. So that lineup is already set. And then, we'll do some cigars up on the terrace there and get a chance to talk to everybody even more. But the next day I'm extremely excited about. After the masterminds, we get on the bus for a pretty decent journey out to Buffalo Trace, where we're doing the Old Taylor tour. It's an archaeological dig.
Best tour in Kentucky bourbon, period.
I agree. I think it's one of the neatest distillery. I mean, we've done Buffalo Trace before, but this specific tour within Buffalo Trace is unique, and it's awesome. And then, keeping on that Taylor theme, we actually go to Castle and Key, and not only are we doing the tour there, but we're going to be doing dinner at the distillery, and we've got a great company coming in catering that food as well. So it should be a very interesting. We all know how the bus rides go.
Here we go.
The bus ride.
Here it is.
The bus ride coming back on day 2 should be interesting. It's going to rival what we saw on Business Bourbon and Cigars 1. I think when Michael Porro was doing his full renditions and karaoke rap songs.
Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang.
Yeah.
Word for word. Did not miss a syllable, by the way.
So it's going to be. We've got a lot of great people. I mean, phenomenal leaders coming in.
Yep.
I'm so excited. It's going to be so great.
It's going to be awesome. And so I push so hard. I think when people get my text messages and private messages, I'm pushing them hard. They're probably like, God, he's texting me again, or he's messaging me again, or he's calling me. I want them to experience it one time, because once they experience it once, they're in. Because
100%.
that is, they see how much value, and it's not just the fun. The fun adds to it all. It adds to the relationships that we form. But the content and what you take back to your stores, I mean, and the manner in which you arrive at it, I think is what makes it unique.
Yeah.
So it's.
The other thing too. I went to the first one, and my first one in the spring, and I was immediately like, okay, how can I get more involved, you guys? This is so. Not like you said, not just fun, but just so valuable to the attendees that are there.
And to that point, and And to that point, real quick too, Laurie, what you said earlier about the authenticity and being genuine, Sandy, what you always say about Chapter 9 persistence, Napoleon Hill, to Scott's point about the follow-up, it's not about just getting there and getting another attendee. It's about what they're going to get out of it. So that is the authenticity that Scott brings in terms of having people go to BB&C because of the aftermath of what they go home with.
I totally agree.
Point. It's a great point. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I will tell you this, SJ. I take the same approach. Is like I want you there as a dealer or a sponsor partner because I know you'll add to the collective IQ in the room, right? That's always the first thing I talk about because we're not bringing in anybody but A player talent that comes in, right? And that's critically important because a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 is not listening to a 7, right? So we've got to have all 9s and 10s.
Correct.
Right? You got to have all 9s and 10s there because that's the way that we have that collective IQ lifted each and every time we make an addition to the community. And the second thing I say is you're going to walk away with as much as you contribute and sometimes more so. And so to me, it's just an incredible investment of not just your money, which is nominal, but it's your time and your talent as well. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to put the banner up one more time so everybody has it. It's September 13th through the 15th coming up. I think we have 2 dealer member seats that are available right now. That's it at that point in time. And so if you do have an interest, go to businessbourboncigarsfordealers.com and register. It is on a first-come basis. You will not be disappointed. I can't wait to see you guys. I can't wait to get there.
Oh, yeah.
My wife, Mary, is excited to get there as well. She can't wait. She has not been to Louisville, and so she's really looking forward to her first visit into what I consider to be the best small city in the country. I just love it. I think I'm
excited to be back there.
Yeah, it's just a great place to visit. So, guys, listen, please make sure everybody out there in the audience that you follow both Ron and myself, but also Scott and Laurie on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, TikTok, wherever else you happen to be, any of those platforms, meet them wherever they are. YouTube channel, please make sure that you subscribe, like, and share as well. Today's interview is produced and distributed by Sandy Cerami and Associates and executive producer Ron, the Marvelous One Marvo, the man with the devastating right hand. When you don't know who to call or what to do, that's usually when our phone rings and our email inbox dings. So reach out to us for whatever your needs may be. You can check us out at sandycerami.com. Please go take a peek at charismacommunications.com because you can get more information about Laurie and her team. Laurie, any other way that we can find you and your team? Or did I cover it all?
I'd say I'm just super, super active on LinkedIn. So you can almost, we're on LinkedIn. This is probably where I'm the most active in terms of honestly anywhere.
Excellent. Well, listen, I really appreciate you guys taking the time. It's, at the end of the day, it's all about the people we get to take this journey with. And I wouldn't want to take it with 3 other people than the 3 I've got with me here today. So I thank you for your time. In the meantime, we got to step up to stand out, and we are out.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. Thank you all. It was fun.
Thank you.